Hey, I'm Renee, but you can call me Blade, and this is the Oh My God Show. And today we're gonna continue reading the book of Genesis, and we're at Genesis chapter 31. Now, the Bible is broken down into two parts, the Old Testament and the New Testament. It has a total of 66 books, and each book is divided into chapters and verses. Now let's get right into it. So in chapter 30, we saw where Jacob was showing an interest in getting an opportunity to leave Laban's house with his family, but he has also made a plan or a scheme to get more of the animals or the wealth for himself. So let's continue reading verse 31 verse 1. It says, Jacob heard that Laban's sons were saying, Jacob has taken everything our father owned and has gained all this wealth from what belonged to our father. And Jacob noticed that Laban's attitude toward him was not what it had been. Now, if you know, I don't know if it has ever happened to you in real life, but usually you ever have like a friend or relationship or even any kind of relationship, and whenever things are going south, even if the person or you did not say something to the person, right? But the person, you might notice a change in the person's attitude, or maybe they would have noticed a change in your attitude, because usually, before we as human beings, we take an action, we usually start thinking. So once our minds start thinking a different way, or looking at the person another way, the person is no longer the person that you love, or probably you were disappointed even before you open your mouth to say that I'm disappointed in you, or I don't love you anymore, I don't care about you any more. But they say that actions speak louder than words. So we can see that now rumors are going around, and Jacob can feel that there is a switch. Remember how happy Laban was when he came around and all of this, and now he was happy to give him his daughters to marry. But no, when sometimes money is involved, you know how things can be. So now Jacob can feel that there's a switch in the atmosphere, that there is something happening, and you can tell that something is not right. Now in verse 3 it says, Then the Lord said to Jacob, Go back to the land of your fathers and to your relatives, and I will be with you. So we see here now where the Lord is speaking again to Jacob, and Jacob has now, although he has gained the reputation of being a very tricky person, but he's also someone who knows how to call on God whenever he needs help. So he understands the power of God, and he is always, whenever he's on his face, even whether he's the one who got himself in trouble or not, but he's always gonna be looking to God for help. So God is saying, don't worry, just go back to your family's house and leave this place. So in verse 4 it says, So Jacob sent word to Rachel and Leah to come out to the fields where his flocks were. He said to them, I see that your father's attitude toward me is not what it was before, but the God of my father has been with me. You know that I have worked for your father with all my strength, yet your father has cheated me by changing my wages 10 times. However, God has not allowed him to harm me. If he said, The speckled one will be your wages, then all the flocks gave birth to speckled young, and if he said the streaked ones will be your wages, then all the flocks bore streaked young. So God has taken away your father's livestock and has given them to me. So now he's having a big life crisis, because, even though he's married to Leah and Rachel, but Laban is their father. So there's like, you can imagine. So now they're stuck in the middle. But basically Jacob wants them to see reason, like, yes, your father is not being fair to me. See, I have worked. And again, you see where Jacob is a very hard worker, always working and all of that. But he said, look, he has been the one cheating me, and basically he's getting tired of this, and now he's feeling not safe, I think, with them. Now he's saying that not because I'm the one who cheated, but obviously, even though Jacob did something to manipulate the process, as we saw in the previous chapter, but at the end of the day, only God can create an animal like that, right? So he's like, as far as Jacob is concerned, it is God who has given him the wealth, of Laban. Now in verse 10 it says, In breeding season, I once had a dream in which I looked up and saw that the male goats mating with the flocks were streaked, speckled, or spotted. The angel of God said to me in a dream, Jacob. I answered, Here I am. And he said, Look up and see that all the male goats mating with the flocks are streaked, speckled, or spotted, for I have seen all that Laban has been doing to you. In verse 13, he says, I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar and where you made a vow to me. Now leave this land at once and go back to your native land. In verse 14, then Rachel and Leah replied, do we still have any share in the inheritance of our father's estate? Does he not regard us as foreigners? Not only has he sold us, but he has used up what was paid for us. So in verse 16, surely all the wealth that God took away from our father belongs to us and our children. So do whatever God has told you. So now, naturally, these women should be basically taking up or siding with their father, but they are now beginning to be on the side of their husband, because first of all, they feel like they were, well, obviously they were sold, basically, especially Leah, without any option or choice. At least Rachel might have liked Jacob, but like Leah especially, she was just, transacted like she was a animal or something, and trapped in a marriage with someone who doesn't even love her. And now they are having children, and the man has, as I say, used up even all the money for the dowry, or all the money that Jacob has given to him. Now, at the end of the day, it is their husband that is now the one who has more wealth. And they're like, at the end of the day, aren't we just cargo? Aren't we just foreigners that he has sold off to you? So whatever you're going to do, or whatever you plan to do, like, we are with you. So they are supporting Jacob in whatever decision he plans to make. Now, and they're also saying, even if we were to side with him, what does he even have to give us at this point? Now, in verse 17, then Jacob put his children and his wives on camels, and he drove all his livestock ahead of him, along with all the goods he had accumulated in Padam Aram, and to go to his father Isaac in the land of Canaan. When Laban had gone to shear his sheep, Rachel stole her father's household gods. Moreover, Jacob deceived Laban the Aramean by not telling him he was running away. In verse 21, so he fled with all he had, crossed the Euphrates River, and headed for the hill country of Gilead. Again, he's running away with the man's daughters and grandchildren. And again, I think between Laban and Jacob, they're actually alike. They have the same personality. They believe in going around corners, cutting corners, cheating people. And each time they do this deceptive thing and try to cheat someone, usually each other, then they are going to always be feeling the repercussions. So now it's not just about the money, but now he's gonna be, I'm sure, he's emotionally attached to his grandchildren and his daughters, and they're all living relatively close to each other now. And now all of a sudden he decided to just leave and not even tell him. Now in verse 22, on the third day Laban was told that Jacob had fled, taking his relatives with him. He pursued Jacob for 7 days and caught up with him in the hill country of Gilead. Now in verse 24, then God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream at night and said to him, be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. Now this man was already very upset, and I think had it not been for that dream, you would see what would have happened now. In verse 25, it says, Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country of Gilead when Laban overtook him, and Laban and his relatives camped there too. Then Laban said to Jacob, what have you done? You deceived me, and you carried off my daughters like captives in a war. Now it's very personal for Laban, and he feels like, come on, like, are they like prisoners or criminals that you're just gonna take them and not even tell me? No. And in verse 27 it says, why did you run off secretly and deceive me? Why didn't you tell me, so I could send you away with joy and singing to the music of timbrels and harps? In verse 28 it says, you didn't even let me kiss my grandchildren and my daughters goodbye. This is now very personal and emotional for Laban, and he really was not happy with Jacob's decision. Now, you have done a foolish thing. I have the power to harm you, but last night the God of your father said to me, be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. Now you have gone off before, sorry, in verse 30, now you have gone off because you longed to return to your father's household. But why did you steal my God? So Laban was upset about everything, the money, aka the animals, which was a sign of wealth, and he was upset that he left with the daughters and the grandkids. But on top of everything else, if he could say, it's okay, they're your kids, so you have a right. Okay, they're your wives, so you have a right. But this part just really pained Laban, because he's like, so why then? Okay, you guys have done everything. And even the daughters, they're also agreeing with the husband. They didn't put up a fight. They didn't complain. They were like, it's fine. We will go with you. After all, didn't he sell us to you? Who cares anyway? Now, he said, but why did you take my gods? Why you steal the gods on top of everything that you've done? Like, it's bad enough. But this thing that you're doing now, it's like you really, really went over the edge by stealing my gods. Now, in verse 31, Jacob answered Laban, I was afraid because I thought you would take your daughters away from me by force. And this is a very valid fear of Jacob, because just to spite him, it would be good if he held on to his daughters. Probably they just take them and give them to another man, or even worse, let them stay and just become stay in the house and just be like that. But it's a good and a valid fear that Jacob had, and that's one of the reasons why he didn't want him to know. And remember that Jacob already told Laban that he wanted to leave, and when they had that discussion, Laban said he would give him, they made this agreement about Jacob getting the flocks. We didn't see Jacob insisting or saying that, listen, I don't want to stay, I don't want the money, I'm gonna go. But in the back of Jacob's mind, Jacob had a plan. He wasn't gonna leave without getting a lot of stuff, right? But if you find anyone who has your gods, that person shall not live. Now remember, Jacob has nothing to do with the gods or the idol worship. Jacob believes in God, has had encounters with God, speaks to God, especially when he's in trouble. And the last thing he wanted was the gods of Laban that would be, of course, no use to Jacob. And because Jacob knows he didn't take it, he didn't see anybody taking it, he's like, okay, my bad, I should have said goodbye. My bad, I shouldn't have just left without saying anything. But one thing I am sure of, I did not touch those guys. As a matter of fact, if you find anybody in this whole camp, any of them that you find with it, kill them. That's how sure. And I don't think that Jacob thought that anybody stole the gods, because that's a big thing to say. Like, you find them, not just punish them, not take it back from them, but if you find it, kill them, and that's a very powerful statement, I think, because he knows for sure I don't have it. So if you find it, do what you want to do, kill them, right? Now, in the presence of our relatives, see for yourselves whether there is anything of yours here with me, and if so, take it. Now, Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen the gods. Now, he's basically giving the man permission to kill his favorite woman in that house. Because of his ignorance, he didn't know what had happened. And we see here where he's very annoyed now, because even though, you can see that he used trickery, or probably used him head, as we like to say, on Laban, but Jacob felt like this man has cheated him as well, and he's done all these things to him, and he feels justified in whatever he has done to to Laban. And even though he has his reservations, but he's like, no, this one is going too far for you to come here now and accuse me of everything that I've stolen your gods. Then please don't come here with that story. Again, when Rachel stole the gods, of course, Jacob could not have known about that. Like, imagine the big deal of her stealing those gods. Now, in verse 33, so Laban went into Jacob's tent and into Leah's tent and into the tent of the two female servants, but he found nothing. After he came out of Leah's tent, he entered Rachel's tent. Now in verse 34, now Rachel had taken the household gods and put them inside her camel's saddle and was sitting on them. Laban searched through everything in the tent but found nothing. Now in verse 35, Rachel said to her father, Don't be angry, my lord, that I cannot stand up in your presence. I'm having my period. So he searched but could not find the household god. Now, she told a very big lie here. And if you know, especially when we go further into the Bible, into the book of Leviticus, I think Exodus as well, you will see why it's such a big deal. Like, you know, when a woman is having her period, it's like a big deal, unclean. And there is no way that, I guess, the man would be happy to just be turning the next way if he found out that this girl was having her period, and definitely probably not gonna touch something that she was sitting on with her period self, you know, or while she's having her period. So she knows, but I'm sure she probably would have heard what Jacob said, and this lie she was telling basically to save her life. And I don't know why she would have thought of everything else, you know, to take, was that it was okay for her to take the gods. But then again, maybe that's the idols and the gods that they serve. You know, whenever you believe in God, everywhere you want to go with your gods, right? With God. And if you're someone who is into idol worship, then you have to physically take your God with you. So I guess maybe she just thought, well, if we're gonna go far away and probably not gonna come back, and then, you know, she probably wanted that as a form of comfort. But stealing is wrong, and stealing the gods of her father was definitely not a good thing. So at least she escaped death by doing so. Now in verse 36, Jacob was angry and took Laban to task. What is my crime? He asked. How have I wronged you that you hunt me down? Now that you have searched through all my goods, what have you found that belongs to your household? Put it here in front of your relatives and mine, and let them judge between the two of us. Now, for Jacob, as I said, it's becoming very emotional. He's passionate, he's angry, he's upset, probably thinking all the things the man has done to him, all the things written in the pages of the Bible, all the things that they didn't write down, that he has endured in the hands of this man. And now he feels, you know, it's a very big deal as well for someone to come, because if they're coming to search your house, they're calling you a thief, right? Or they suspect that you're a thief, and everybody, has to see that they're coming to search everywhere, and the embarrassment and the disgrace. And he's saying, okay, between you, your relatives and mine, everybody's here, like, what you find, come and bring it out, because now this is a very big embarrassment and inconvenience. And he's upset now. In verse 38, it says, I have been with you for 20 years now. Your sheep and goat have not miscarried, nor have I eaten rams from your flocks. I did not bring you animals torn by wild beasts. I bore the loss myself. And you demanded payment for me for whatever was stolen by day or night. This was my situation. The heat consumed me in the daytime and the cloud at night, and sleep fled from my eyes. It was like this for the 20 years I was in your house. I worked for you 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your flocks, and you have changed my wages 10 times. Now in verse 42 it says, if the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had not been with me, you would surely have sent me away empty-handed. But God has seen my hardship and the toil of my hands, and last night he rebuked you. Jacob is upset. He's venting. And now we see more of the things that Laban, he has suffered basically in Laban's hand. And he's saying that if God wasn't with me, you would have finished me already, probably. You would have allowed me to work for you all this time and send me away empty. But because God is with me, and because my parents are God-fearing people, that is why God has been taking care of me and protecting me. But if everything was left up to you, you would have done me worse than what you have already done. And Jacob is just venting and spilling his heart to Laban. So in verse 43, Laban answered Jacob, the women are my daughters, the children are my children, and the flocks are my flocks. All you see is mine. Yet what can I do today about these daughters of mine, or about the children they have borne? Come now, let's make a covenant, you and I, and let it serve as a witness between us. So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar. He said to his relatives, gather some stones. So they took stones and piled them into a heap, and they ate there by the heap. Laban called it Jegar Shahadotha, and Jacob called it Gilead. Now in verse 48, Laban said, "This heap is a witness between me and you today." That is why it was called Gilead. Now it was also called Mizpah because he said, "May the Lord keep watch between you and me when we are away from each other." Now these men have had ups and down fight for 20 years, and now I think they're both tired. They're both tired of the foolishness. And at the end of the day, if he hurts, for example, Jacob's wives, they are his daughters. If he hurts the kids, they are his grandkids, In fact, he's not even calling them grandchildren. He said, they are mine. They're my kids. They're my children. So at the end of the day, hurting you is going to be hurting my family as well, right? And if you mistreat my daughters, but he said to him that they wanted to have like a peace treaty, but he knows that now Jacob will literally take the girls away, or his daughters away. So now in verse 50, it says, "If you mistreat my daughters, or if you take any wives besides my daughters, even though no one is with us, remember that God is a witness between you and me." And they know already. There was just 2 wives and the 2 maids or concubines, and they were already having family drama. So imagine him taking them to another place and marrying some other woman, probably different gods, different tradition, and the drama. And he didn't want that stress in the life of his daughters. So he's saying that even if I can't see you, remember that God sees you, and promise me that you're not going to go and start marrying all these different women again and then causing stress and grief to my daughters. Now in verse 51, Laban also said to Jacob, "Here is this heap, and here is this pillar I have set up between you and me. This heap is a witness, and this pillar is a witness that I will not go past this heap to your side to harm you, and that you will not go past this heap and pillar to my side to harm me. May the God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge between us." So Jacob took an oath in the name of the fear of his father Isaac. He offered a sacrifice there in the hill country and invited his relatives to a meal. After they had eaten, they spent the night there. Early the next morning, Laban kissed his grandchildren and his daughters and blessed them. Then he left and returned home. So Laban has finally accepted that he has to let Jacob go. It's time for him to go back to his own land, his own family, his own people, and build, a wealth, a nation of people for himself through his own wives and family. And we see where Laban, I guess, has realized that, you know what, I need to stop fighting. I need to go home and rest, or go home and do whatever he needs to go home and do. But we see where they've kind of come up with a good agreement, considering that death was on the table. So now they have decided to move on. So now that Jacob, that's the end of the reading for this chapter. Now that Jacob has decided to go home, and now he's on his way back to his own, country. And sometimes, being an expat and all of that, you feel so good when you get to go home. Sometimes if it's for a vacation, or when you finally finish working in that particular country that you spent years and you're ready to go back home, it's usually exciting, right? It should be a very exciting moment for Jacob. But remember that the last time he saw his brother Esau wanted to, destroy him because of the fraud that he committed against Esau. So let's see what's going to happen in chapter 32. Again, Jacob's action is following him. He's been said to be someone who must and will be blessed, but we see that challenges, mix-up, drama, blender, always following Jacob. Let's see what's going to happen in chapter 32. Anyway, for now, that's it for now. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey as we delve into the Word of God. The Word of God is life, it's power, it's sharper than any two-edged sword. It has the ability to change your life. It has changed mine. Thank you so much. Before I go, I just want to give God thanks and praises for his blessings on our lives. I thank him because he's amazing, because he's awesome, because he's a God who is able to do so much. Lord, you're able to do so much, Lord, and we thank you. We thank you for everything you have done, Lord, in the lives of my life, God, in the lives of my subscribers, in the lives of those people who will be listening, God. Father God, I thank you for giving us life. I thank you for giving us hope. I thank you for giving us access to your love and your grace. In Jesus Christ's name, I have prayed. Amen. Bye for now. See you next time. I'm Blade and I'm cutting. Bye.